What's up guys, Mario Team Beige here, and today we are back with another video, and today we are doing another deck profile, but this is for a deck I've been working on recently, and Justice Hunters came out about a couple weeks ago, and I've been enjoying a lot of the new decks. I really like the Draco Tail archetype a lot, as probably my favorite amongst all the new decks, and then I think Yummy is pretty strong and kind of like, it's kind of interesting. It doesn't do the most, but you know, it's a pretty like high non-engine deck. And then you have the K9 cards. There are different ways to play the K9 cards right now. You can play them in the Vanquish Soul deck, which is supposedly the best version. You can play them as a sub-engine with like Izuna and Ripper as like a hand trap in other decks. But then there's this version to play the deck, which is personally my favorite, and that is K9 Crystron. So we've seen Crystron cards do well in events. We have seen like in some YCSs, like I believe Steven Santoli was playing Crystron with the Horus cards, and we've seen they just like pop up in occasions. You know, these like top row of cards right here, they've been doing their thing. But they've gotten some great support in the form of the K9 cards. Sulfador and Sulfefnir are level 5s, which synergize perfectly with Jokul, which allows you to summon them from hand, or as well as Jokul summoning any 5, lets you make Riverstormer get to Scrapper Cycler without your normal summon, and that's full Crystron combo, which is really, really broken. But we're going to go over the list that I have been working on recently. I don't know if I don't think this is the best list you can have for it, but I did, you know, it's a list that I like. I think it has been working well enough for me, and so I just want to share with you guys where my head is at in terms of deck building for this. We are playing 3 Sulfador. He's one of the best sort of engine pushes in the deck. Revealing this off Jokul is absolutely insane. On summon, he foolishes 2 Crystron cards, and then he can reborn himself by popping a Crystron card on your field, or summon from hand. Sulfefnir summons itself by pitching a Crystron card, and then if it's popped, it summons one from deck. You usually need these in circulation to make your Nova and Infinity when you go Tristaros pop as Skeletus. And then you can summon this, like I said, off of Jokul, which is really nice. It's really, really nice having Jokul just kind of like get a dead Sulfefnir out of your hand. Even if whether it goes into Riverstormer or your Ripper to search for other K9 cards, this is just like such a great engine push. I'm playing 1 Tristaros. You really only need 1. I think any more is just going to make you prone to breaking. This doesn't do anything on its own. And really, like, in what I've found, and from looking at other versions of this deck, you don't do as much synchroing. There's maybe a world where you play, like, I don't know, something to, like, that works as a little bit of a breaker, more with your Crystron cards, but otherwise we're using Crystron as sort of like a sub-engine just to be able to put up an insane board. 1 Smiger, this searches you your Crystron spell or traps. You can dump it off Sulfefnir, or Scrap Recycler, but it's otherwise just basically what gets your engine going. 3 Inclusion, this searches you any Crystron card, and then it can reborn when it's banished. We are playing 3 Izuna, 3 Jokul, 1 Lantern, and 3 Chaotic Elements. This is like the main consistent part of the K9 package in any deck. Izuna, as we know, is a great hand trap to being able to dump Lupus, which can XYZ on your opponent's turn using these 2. And then Jokul, like I said, reveals any level 5 to summon itself, and then it can search for a K9 non-Aqua monster. Basically, it just can't search itself. But yeah, this card is insanely good when you're trying to like make engine pushes. It's a little worse going second. You kind of need it paired with Sulfador going second for it to be do something meaningful, but it's still really good. We're playing 1 Lantern just to be able to revive our K9s and then search for our K9 spell. And then 3 Chaotic Elements. This works, does so many things in this deck. It searches for your Jokul and your Lantern. If you set up Nash Knight with Honor Dark underneath, and you detach those, or these get removed, and then you have like one of these engraved, and you can go Chaotic Elements, add one of these guys, and then pop a card on your opponent's field, since you have 3 or more Pyro and or Aqua monsters in your grave. And then if your opponent controls a Pyro or Aqua, Light, or Dark, you can change your hardest. So this works great as a way to out-detonate her while it's still in the format. 1 Scrap Recycler. This sort of is the bridge between K9 and Crystron. That's what I really like about this deck, is that both engines kind of feed into each other a little bit. It's a little difficult to get your Crystron cards to produce 2/5s without machine locking you to make Ripper, but it still like works in a way that I like how this bridges between each other more than like the synergy that these cards have in the Vanquish Soul deck. I'm also just not crazy about the Vanquish Soul cards, but if you do like that deck and you want a profile, I'll still try and get one. One Lupus, this is the card that lets you Xyz on your opponent's turn, and it also works a little bit as a hand trap. As you can see, we're playing Typhon, so you can technically make Typhon with it on your opponent's turn. Kind of nice. I'm playing one case for K9. There's an argument to play one more of this just for consistency purposes, but I've been just doing okay with one right now. I've been kind of want to see how much non-engine I can fit in. And then one cluster. This is part of your layered interruptions, which is sort of the best thing about this deck is being able to have an Azuna in hand, a cluster for pop, and have the Infinity, Staros to summon from deck and Synchro for a Dawn Dragster, and then SP to like tag out. So there's a lot of cool things this deck can do. So that's it for the main engine, 24 engine. You can add like this talents right here is sort of a flex spot that I'm working with. So you can add either another case for K9. I've thought about playing Thistivern, the level 3 Crystron monster that searches for a Crystron monster when it's banished. But I just sort of decided like I kind of rather mess with having more non-engine and then figure out later if I like cut basically things that are extra and kind of work with like a little bit of a bare minimum to figure out what is essential. For the non-engine, I'm playing things that I've just have found have been basically good. This is the first time in a format that I've really liked Nibiru a lot. I usually don't like this card because it's just felt really mid, even regardless of what people say about it. However, this time in this format, I think Nibiru is actually a lot better right now. It pairs better, I think, than it did with cards than I think it did before, which is really nice. Which is crazy because you think with K9 Ripper being able to negate a monster effect in the hand, it would be like a little difficult to make Nibiru good. But you have like other ways to sort of make pushes for either Nibiru to be live or use Nibiru as a bluff for the things that matter. And so it's kind of nice. This is really great against Yummy. You need it to stop their Herald of the Arclight because Arclight can be a problem for this deck. Since we're on droplets, and then Sulfador can't foolish, Scrap Recycler can't foolish. There was a game today in testing. I literally had to go normal Scrap Recycler effect. They changed Cupsy to tag out, and then I could only go droplet, send one, send my Recycler just to negate Herald. I was able to play through, and it's really nice, but it was still like really tough to deal with Herald. So you need Nibiru. Ash and Droplet work as defensive cards in their best, while Ash is like kind of mid as a hand trap going into stuff. I think being able to Ash stuff like Raisin and Field Spell for Vanquish Soul start is really good. Ashing Cupsy to get them off surprise is always nice. You want to hit Obedient School as well. And then also just ashing Holy Sue is really important. So I think having this card is absolutely necessary in my opinion. I'll let people discuss otherwise whether they agree or disagree, but I personally am a fan of the Ash Blossom right now. 3 Fua, this card is just really great into everything. Like, there's no matchup in which this feels bad. And I'd rather have this in my deck at all times. One talent, this, like I said, this is the flex spot, but with some of the like hand traps that you're kind of seeing right now, like people are playing like Izunas, which they can only use during the main phase. They might Fua you on like 2/5s, or like aside from maybe Porelia, people are using hand traps in the main phase. With the exception of Lancia. I will acknowledge Lancia, unfortunately. As much as I hate that card, but otherwise, most of everything is being used in the main phase, so you should be able to get some value out of talents. Otherwise, this is a flex spot. 3 Droplet, this is a great defensive card, and it also gets things in the grave, whether it's for Lantern Reborn or Sulfador. Like a lot of the Crystron cards just work in the grave, which is nice. Then 3 Imperm. I personally like Imperm because you need something to out Herald of the Arclight, or just like straight up just use it on Herald, or like Snatchy in draw phase, or just it comes up. I personally. For the extra deck, we're playing one Eliskeldus. He can add back from the graveyard a Crystron card, and if he's popped, he summons from grave or banish. I was playing 2 originally, but I think 1 can be fine. I've been doing okay with 1. I'll like decide later if I want another one. 1 Dawn Dragster, you summon it off of your Tristaros just for a spell trap negation. It's like, in my opinion, this is kind of a mid interaction, but I think it's worth playing because there really isn't a lot of things to do with Tristaros to synchro. So having this is just necessary. 1 Typhon, like I said, I like it just because of Lupus. And also like you're playing enough cards that let you play on your opponent's turn if you get into a grindy like push through and you kind of exhaust your engine a bit. So long as you're not completely machine locked, you can make this. Um, and if you have like an Ash, an Imperm, a Droplet, and a Zuna to back you up, that's like 12 cards to back you up on top of whether or not like Cluster is live or anything. So it's kind of nice to just have. Chronometry Phenomena, this is just a Crystron staple in my opinion. And from what I've seen, just as a machine to make. Just note that if you use Jokel or Lantern to summon themselves, you can't make Phenomena with the monsters that were used for these effects. Infinity and Nova, this is like the best card in the extra. Honestly, this deck I think produced strongest end board of all the decks right now, or like one of the strongest end boards of all right now. Like being able to set up Infinity, Dawn Dragster setup, SP, Izuna to be able to go into Valen or Nash Knight, Cluster Pop. Like this deck just does so much that like people are playing like Dark Ruler, and some people are even doing like Mega Fleet, being able to contact views with Infinity and the SP. There's a way to play around it, but I don't know. I think this deck's really strong. It has some difficulties going second, and that's kind of like why I'm like not so sure of it being the best, but I think it's the best K9 variant in my opinion. Zeus is a machine that we can make, and honestly, there's some cool ways that we can make it. Whether if we have a lot of materials on Werewolf, or if we go Riverstorm or Attack, or we just turn any of our XCs into a Zeus. It's really nice, especially when he's locked. And if we're able to resolve Zeus, it's even harder for a lot of decks to come back from that. Zeus just being able to send everything is kind of broken. Riverstormer is the bridge between our level 5s and our K9 engine by adding Scrap Recycler, which dumps Smyger, Smyger add Inclusion, Inclusion to add Sulfidor, Sulfidor dumps Sulfefnir, and Cluster. There's just so many different, it just bridges everything together, which is really nice. Ripper and Werewolf. Ripper is obviously a staple for any K9 deck, and it searches you everything, and then you can, if they use something this turn, you can then set a quick play. I am citing Force Released. Personally, I haven't been enjoying this in the main deck. It has caused a little bit of like inconsistency issues, and I kind of would rather like these be my like true bricks if we're then like not counting Tristaros and Lantern. I guess like actually yeah, Case for K9 is really not like Recycler and Case are not really bricks, so I'd rather just kind of like not add more on top of Tristaros, Lantern, Lupus, and Cluster. So that's why we're personally siding it, but obviously he's saying the extra. These cards are broken. I'd rather make Werewolf going first post side in any way. And then we're playing Nash Knight with Honor Dark. They're Aquas, which, like I said, facilitates chaotic elements. And then this is just honestly a broken interaction that we can set up. And then Valon Book of Moon is kind of like solos a lot of decks right now. One Clockwork Knight, this is part of the combo. And then also post side, we can search for Clockwork Knight if we have our Case for K9 on the field. That's kind of the value we can get with this post side as well if we're even if we weren't playing force release, because usually you pop this to set the force release, but it honestly like still works because we can search for this floodgate against Yummy and Malice, making all their things machines. And then SP is just the most broken card in the extra because of getting rid of Minion. And then for the side deck, this is all experiment, like, but these are things that I've personally liked. Lancia, obviously, because of Malice, and also it hurts the mirror. Phantasme works really well, in my opinion, against Yummy. And it also has that overlap into Malice, which is nice over something like Meows. I don't think Meows has a lot of value right now. But Phantasme for me has just been really great, being able to draw cards, be a body that can out like Herald or any of Yummy names, pitch like your Crystrons to get them into the graveyard if you wanted to, if they try and target stuff, or they have to play really awkwardly to get rid of Phantasme, which I think is so great. When called by for Droll and Lancia, those are kind of like the things that hurt you the most. Lancia, like maybe not as bad, but I'd say Droll's like a little bit harder. It's kind of nice that Droll's in the side deck for most decks right now because of like K9 variants and Yummy being such a very popular deck. So we want to have this when we're going first. And there's some matchups you could play this going second, but it's like very far and few. I'm playing one Duster just because like Yummy and Vanquishal back row can be really tough. Against Vanquishal, they usually have like the Force Release. They have like Snow Devil. They have I'm blanking on like I guess any more, but those still are really good interactions. So being able to just force them is really nice. Yummy, if anything, the best thing about Yummy back row is that they have Surprise, they have Purge. If most decks will play Purge, they'll have Imperm, which having those two individual things can be really hard for like any as you're making engine pushes to deal with like value trades. So being able to just get rid of them is really nice. There's still likely keep purge in hand if they're smart, and they feel like they don't need to, but sometimes like they have been setting it. I have seen it before. And then we're playing two thrusts just to be able to get to Duster and then also the talent. And also we can like there's an argument where you could play like a normal trap going first, like in my opinion, Black Goat Laughs is kind of good right now. Just against like Snatchy, just call Snatchy and like they can't do anything. It's really funny. One Clockwork Knight. I haven't like fully been able to use this a lot, but this is just some theory of like it being a floodgate against Yummy, which is a really tough matchup. Force Release. I want to side this in going first because I think it's better going first than it going second. There is a world where you can use this if you like play this and then you happen to draw it. You can dodge Imperm on Ripper, but I just don't know how real that. So I'd rather like side into going first, like going first engine cards that are really good into a lot of matchups. Um, like probably normally what I'd probably do is like 3 judgment, force release, thrust. Well, not even thrust actually. So 3 judgment, force release, called by, and then we could do like 3 Fua, and then a droplet and a talent or an imperm if we wanted to, because we usually like imperm's really good going first. Ash is good going first. Droplet's like pretty all right, but so we have some stuff that like some pretty easy side outs as well. And I think going second against most matchups, into like generally I take out like 2 Jokel and a Illusion if I wanted like 2 Thrust and a Duster, or like 3 into like Vanquish, or like 3 Phantasme. Yummy, obviously, we cut down on Azunas, as well as Jokels, and that lets us fit in Phantasme, Thrust, Duster. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about siding. But this is like fully experimental. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button down below. Subscribe to Team Beige. I will be doing more Justice Hunter deck profiles as I start messing with more stuff, and let me know what you want to see down below. But yeah, I'm Marty, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.